The KQ Morning Show, 92 KQRS.
We've got a we got a show for you for a Friday, and it's not just any Friday. It's 4/19, which means tomorrow is 4/20.
The big eve. I've been waiting all year to light up. Finally, 4/20's here.
It's the one that you're like the tourist who only used to get stoned in Amsterdam.
Yeah, right.
No,
right,
I will only do it if it's legal. That's it.
Right. That's right.
Which, by the way, quick tangent. If anybody's ever been to Amsterdam, or if you ever went in the 90s or even the late 80s, there were two types of people that went there. Everyday stoners and just the holiday stoners. And it was real easy to tell the difference because the holiday stoners were the people laying in the gutters and in the ditches and in the canals, just out of their gourds. Speaking of which, you're looking at one right here. My first two trips to Amsterdam were legendarily awful because, as I've mentioned, stoner never really my vibe, never really worked for me. I mean, I tried, man. Look, the coach put me in, and I gave it my best every time, but it just never really clicked.
That's all you can ask, man. You can't expect more than that. You gave it the old college try. My first time to Amsterdam, I was very excited. Prospect legally getting high. Mm-hmm. And it would have been the early 2000s. However, it wasn't pot that I wandered into because I was just running. I saw something that said American Cafe, and I went, American Cafe, that's me. I'm going to go in there.
Yeah.
And I had mushroom tea.
I didn't realize that psychedelics were legal either. And I'm looking at the menu, and I was like, do you have marijuana?
Yeah.
And she kind of chuckled at me. She said,
we have a whole menu here. We don't do that here. What we do are teas. And I went, oh, great. I'm in a frickin' tea shop. Whatever. Yeah. And she said, but this one will really, if you're looking for a marijuana, she pointed to one, and I'm like, huh? And then was explained to me. And then off I went, gallivanting around Amsterdam. It was like...
there he goes.
The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
By myself in the Canal District.
I had several nights in Amsterdam in my life where I started with a group of people and ended up alone, walking back to the hotel, praying I remembered where I was going down those narrow streets because I was like, I'm glad you guys are having fun. I have to be in a room by myself behind a locked door for the next 9 hours. Excuse me. That's how that goes. Tomorrow is 4/20. Tomorrow's also Record Store Day, a perfect opportunity to get baked and listen to some vinyl, or as we call it, high school. The old days. The good old days.
Exactly.
Yeah,
there was a couple of unemployment stints for me. That it's amazing how quickly we regress to that. Like, I'm unemployed. I'll panic in about a month, but for now, I'm just putting on some tunes and getting baked. I'm going to get up in the morning and have myself a beer. By the way, we did put something up on the KQ Facebook page.
It's been percolating in honor of the big 420 weekend. Some great stories on there. We'll get to those, but just so you know, it's up on the KQ Facebook page. We want to hear about your wildest weed moments. And we're off and running with some good ones this morning. We'll be sharing here in a little bit. And also some big news came in yesterday in the world of classic rock. Steve?
Dickie Betts of the Allman Brothers. Dickie Betts died yesterday at the age of 80. My first thought when I heard that was my man was on borrowed time for a while. Dickie Betts lived a very colorful life, which is, what you say when you're trying to figure out how to make it sound. The guy was all over the place. That's what I'm saying. He did everything at one speed. Yeah. I mean, just full throttle for 80 years. He was as passionate about fishing and as about, karate and golf as he was guitar. Whatever he was doing, that's where he was. That's who he was. And, of all the things, and we'll talk about Dickie throughout the morning, and we'll listen to some Allman Brothers here in a little bit. The best thing I saw that really kind of put it all just in the simplest, best context was Dan Baird, the lead singer of the Georgia Satellites and a hell of a songwriter and a guy responsible for great solo records on his own. He wrote yesterday on Facebook, Dickie Betts had balls the size of grapefruits. He goes, he always took the solo after Dwayne, and he never once dropped the ball. Think about that.
Yeah. Wow.
I have goosebumps right now saying it out loud, and I had goosebumps when I read it. Oh, he's the guy that stood next to Dwayne Allman and completely held his own. Dwayne Allman, largely considered the greatest slide player of all time, and the sonic visionary genius of the Allman Brothers, and the guy he did that with, Dickie Betts. Dickie was special, a unique unicorn, and my God, did he leave us with a lot of great music.
Smoked it to the butt, didn't he? A lot to get into this morning, and we'll be getting into it here at 6:18. Hang tight.
Connect with us on the KQ Talk and Text line. 651-989-ROCK. That's 651-989-ROCK. 92 KQRS.
I'm Steve Gorman. This is the KQ Morning Show, Friday, April the 19th. Good morning. Two things of note we want to share with you online, both of them. On the KQRS website, 92KQRS.com, there's the Minnesota's bestest poll. We'll get into that a little later today, but just so you know, we're taking a lot of, you can vote on all sorts of things. The bestest in Minnesota. The karaoke bar is heating up. Very tight race right now on karaoke bar, as well as the current athlete from Minnesota. The people are speaking, and they're really, things are going neck and neck. So that's going to get tight. 4 days into a 10-day poll, we've already got more votes, ballots cast than all of last year. So keep it up. This is a lot of fun. Yeah. We enjoy it.
I would add to it a little homework if you want to, if you have time this morning before you bolt out the door. We have a game show coming up at 8 o'clock for the record. We're going to have all sorts of record trivia and that sort of thing. If you go to the KQ Facebook page, go to 92KQRS.com and vote on the bestest of KQ and go down, scroll down to your favorite record store in Minneapolis. That information could come in handy during the game show. I'm just telling you.
Right now. I like that. Yeah, I like dropping little breadcrumbs that way.
Yeah, that's at 8 o'clock. And we're giving away a turntable this morning and some vinyl. What the hell, man?
Look out. So in honor of it being 420 weekend, and of course Record Store Day, what a perfect way to match a, to match a mood. On the KQRS Facebook page, we're sharing our wildest weed moments. I like to think of it like first and worst. The wildest weed moments to me, your first time everybody remembers, and then your worst time. My worst weed moment it didn't involve ingesting or smoking any weed, or it was not about me having anything in my system. It was a time when for really reasons that defy logic. Many years ago, I knew a guy who knew a guy, and I knew some people. Might have been the band I was in at the time. We might have been living in a house in Atlanta making a record that we rented. The people we rented the house from, we didn't tell them we were going to build a studio and make a record there, so we were keeping things down on the DL, as they say. But a buddy of mine knew a guy who had some weed for sale, and there was a shortage in the house, and I don't even smoke. I'm like, I'll go grab it. I'll go buy it. And I went and bought an ounce of weed from a dude I'd never met. And I put it in and then I drove it back to the band house. And it was about a 20 or 30 minute drive with an ounce of weed in the trunk of my car. And I swear to you, I drove 56 miles per hour on the state highway that was 55. Yeah. I checked the mirrors. I got so paranoid the minute I pulled out of this guy's driveway because I was like, what am I doing? Why am I buying the weed? I'm not even going to smoke this. How am I going to explain to the cop that pulls me over? Oh, yes, I'm the drummer in the Black Crowes, but this is not my weed. and I didn't get pulled over. I didn't get arrested. But I literally thought, I don't want to have to. And I wasn't worried about going to prison or any of that. But it was Georgia in the mid-'90s. It would have been pretty substantial. And I thought, I don't want to deal with this. That's what you get for being a nice guy. Yeah. Jeez.
A nice paranoid guy. I was, you mentioned yesterday you were a late bloomer when it came to pot. I was a small town kid in South Dakota. It reminds me of that Onion headline, that satirical headline, alcoholic father disappointed in pothead son. Pot just wasn't, we were a drinking culture out there. Pot was that weird old hippie dude that lived by himself in a house with no windows year round. But that wasn't something we just had available to us. I mean, it was around, but, and I think I tried it once in high school. It was ditchweed. I got a little bit of a headache. It's mostly seeds, but then I went off and played Army for a while. So it wasn't until I was in my early 20s I went to a little thing called DJ School, Brown Institute on Lake Street in Minneapolis.
Heard it.
Oh boy, It was a crash course in Cheech and Chong. And I remember going to my first party, and everybody's got the weed out. So absolutely, I'm going to smoke some weed. I smoke some weed, get super high, super paranoid, not feeling particularly good. So I go to the bathroom. Just an apartment right there off Lake Street, just one bathroom. I go into the bathroom, and I sat there for an hour. And I'm like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
I got to get out of here. People need to use the bathroom. This is getting really embarrassing. I walk out and announce to the party, listen, I'm really sorry. I just got a little too stoned and just got weirded out. And sorry, I've been, in the bathroom for an hour. And someone looked at me and said, what are you talking about? You've been in there for about a minute, dude. Did you even take a piss? And I'm like, what? I don't. That was my introduction to weed. Of course, that didn't stop me, but away I went.
Just you telling that one story, of course, it prompts like 9 stories in my head. I'm like, oh my God.
I know. Well, we'll keep going.
We mentioned, well, real quick, I had the similar thing, the time warp. We mentioned Amsterdam earlier. First time the Black Rose are in Amsterdam, we leave a coffee shop, go back to the hotel. We have an early morning flight, and we put on your MTV Europe. And our first video, the song Jealous Again came on. And it's just 3 or 4 of us in a hotel room watching it. And I'm staring at the TV, and I'm watching this video that I've seen 1,000 times now. It's our first video. And now I'm in Amsterdam watching it. And in the middle of it, I literally said, what, did they do like an extended remix for Europe? That song was 57 minutes long. I was like, what is going on? And everybody looked at me everybody right away is like, go to bed, dude. I was like, my brain is not working right now on any level.
Your weird, wild weed moments this morning on the KQ Morning Show. We'll get to them. We got a whole bunch of them on the KQ Facebook page, and we'll be taking some calls as well, but we got to get along. Mike Evans' Movie Review Friday is coming quickly. Hang tight.
Connect with us on the KQ Talk and Text line, 651-989-ROCK. That's 651-989-ROCK. 92 KQRS.
I'm Steve Gorman. This is the KQ Morning Show for Friday, April the 19th. Hey, you know what Friday is? Movie Review Day. It's the Mike Evans Hollywood Report.
Hey, good morning, the lovely and talented Candace and Steve and Zepparoo, Tony. Hope everybody has a great weekend. It is Friday. That means movie reviews and Marcus Theaters. I think you're going to be busy. This report brought to you by Marcus Theaters, and 2 really good movies to review for you today. And both get 4 stars. The first one is Abigail. It's the story of a sweet, lovable 12-year-old ballerina who is kidnapped. But what the kidnappers don't know is she is a violent, heartless, mean, bloodthirsty vampire. Who could have guessed? This horror film is hilarious. While I don't usually like horror films, this one is worth watching. Get a big popcorn, get ready to laugh, and sit on the edge of your seat for a little under 2 hours. Abigail, rated R, 4 stars. Next is The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. And it is fabulous. Great writing, directing, acting, and it's all true. So a bunch of ex-cons are taken out of jail in England during World War II, and they become the first English Special Forces. And their job to infiltrate their way behind German lines, causing havoc by partying and lying and conning and killing. And again, true, but again, hilarious. They will do just about anything to execute their mission, and the way they do it will make you laugh and make you cry. Guy Ritchie directs, produced by Jerry Bruckheimer. Henry Cavill stars, but the real star is the movie itself. Just great action, surprises, comedy. Rated R, 2 hours long, 4 stars. And if you're planning on staying at home this weekend, here are the top 5 best movies ever made according to Newsweek magazine. Available on streaming platforms, so you can find these movies. Number 5, Lord of the Rings. Number 4, Rear Window, starring Jeremy Stewart. Number 3, Casablanca. Number 2, 12 Angry Men. And number 1, and I agree, The Godfather. And a TV shocker, this season's American Idol rating started at a 6.1, then slipped to a 5.5, then a 4.2, Then a 3.9. Is American Idol over? And by the way, Katy Perry is leaving the show, and I hear Jelly Roll is taking her place. And in case you forgot, come on, boys and girls, sing along. It's Aloha Friday, nowhere till Monday. We're gonna play today Aloha Friday. Lily Yokalani, Lani on the OK, la coo and the cock and the ock and hooey 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 ho.
There you have it. Feisty Mike Evans for 420 weekend out there with all that Hawaiian bud that he's such a fan of. That movie Abigail, someone else told me, I saw something else, somebody else recommending it highly. Anytime I hear the name Abigail, I think back to our daughter Marley. When she was in preschool, she had a friend named Abigail, and Marley thought her name was Abagirl and called her Abagirl.
Sure.
And when we tried to explain it was Abigail, she was like, no, Abagirl. She's a girl. And so she was just Abagirl.
Girl power.
Yeah, I loved it. That just made me so happy. Little Marley just convinced. She was like, no, Dad, poor guy. Dad. It's Abagirl. Come on. You don't know anything, do you, silly man?
Silly dad.
That's it. The KQRS Facebook page. We are looking for some 420 content. Wildest weed stories. We've got some good ones up there already, and looking for plenty more. Of course, the KQ Talking text line 651-989-ROCK is open all day. We've got a couple of guests on the show. Liz Mealy, a great comedian, is at Acme tonight and tomorrow night. She's going to be with us at 9:30. We are also going to be talking with Ruth Lightman, who has. Who is a director of a film that is showing at the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Film Festival. Ruth Lightman, among many other talents, was the photographer who shot the cover for my first album, The Black Crows Shake Your Moneymaker.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and the label Stifter. So, she did the photo shoot. I ran into her after the record came out, and I was like, hey, how's it been? She goes... You never paid me. I go, I never paid you. I don't know how that stuff works. My introduction to the music industry.
How awkward.
When the label screwed over my friend that I hired for the photo shoot. Sorry. Yeah, it's one of those things. It's just another in a long line of moments you look back on and go, that was interesting. Speaking of things that are interesting, on this day in 1981, the Pawtucket Red Sox and the Rochester Red Wings, that's Triple-A baseball, played the longest game in professional baseball history. 33 innings, 8 hours and 25 minutes.
Wow. Wow.
But here's the deal. The first 32 innings played overnight on April 18th and 19th. The tie-breaking 33rd inning wasn't played for 2 more months because these guys played all night long, and because of exhaustion, they said, all right, we'll finish the game later in the season. And so they literally got back together in June to finish. Pawtucket won the game. The final score was 3-2, and it set all kinds of records. Most innings in the game, 33. Total time, 8 hours, 25 minutes. Most at-bats by one player in one game. Cal Ripken Jr. playing for the Rochester Red Wings, 15 at-bats in one game.
I mean, you could get a whole batting average for a season out of just one game. So how many innings did they play when they came back and picked it up?
One. They played 32 innings and then said, screw it. And then two months later, got back together, and it took 1 inning to win the damn game. The best is Russ Larrabee for Pawtucket struck out 7 times in one game.
No.
7 strikeouts.
Oh.
That's great. That game, there was a film made about that game called When Hell Was in Session.
No, I didn't know.
No, that's not true. That was a war film. Sorry.
It's the KQ Morning Show, 92 KQRS. Zep, Tony, Candace, and Steve Gorman are the KQ Morning Show, 92 KQRS.
I'm Steve Gorman. This is the KQ Morning Show. It's Friday, April 19th. Friday. We just heard Def Leppard. I couldn't resist.
Yeah?
Sue me, if you will. Tomorrow's 420. Check this out. 420-24 is a palindrome. You can, the numbers are the same forward and backwards. As long as you have if you do 4/20/24 or 4/20/2024, it's still a palindrome. And that won't happen again on a date for another 1,000 years on this date. April 20th, 30/24 is the next time that'll happen, to which I can only say this. Wow, man. Wow, man. I know someone out there.
No, I'm teasing.
Someone out there is finding this out and literally just staring at themselves in the mirror going, I can't believe it.
I mean, good for them for the wake and bake, I would say. Remember
Hell yeah.
those days when you could get away with that, get up, get stoned, and then go back to bed, and then do it all over again about 5 times in 1 a.m. period? Yeah.
Always worked for me because no matter what time of day it is, if I'm stoned, I'm sleeping. So never a problem for this guy. We are talking about wildest weed memories. We've all got them, or at least we've all got some fuzzy, hazy memories. KQ talking text line is open 651-989-ROCK. Candace, who is on the horn right now?
Rich from Maplewood.
Rich, good morning.
Good morning.
What do you got, brother?
Well, it was a while ago, and it's funny you say that, the wake and bake, because I work third shift, so it's really kind of easy to do. But anyway, back in the day, a friend of mine and I were listening to a little Pink Floyd, and that seems to go good with, that kind of stuff.
It does.
And
Yeah.
we're just sitting there, I don't know what song was playing, but I just out of the blue, I grabbed my sunglasses and put them on the back side of my head and turned my hat around. And I was looking out the window, and when my buddy next to me goes, "What the hell are you staring at?" I turned my head totally around, and he just about I mean, he talk about an exorcism or something going on.
Yeah.
He still brings that up to the day. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Of course he does.
Think of that? Go the
That's
weed, huh?
brilliant. That's going to be duplicated this weekend. I'm sure there are people out there right now going, "I'm doing that. I'm doing that."
Definitely,
good.
definitely. So
I can hear the music, I can smell that room, and I can see that guy's face. That's theater of the mind right there, Rich. Well done, sir.
Yeah, thank you. It was awesome.
That is great.
That's fantastic. 651-989-ROCK, wild weed stories. I think I told this one recently, but we're driving around South Minneapolis and a little stoned. I don't advocate or condone that. We didn't know no better. But anyway, we stop at a 4-way stop, and we're sitting there for what feels like forever. And I'm not driving. I look at my buddy. I'm like, "Dude, you're going to go?" And he goes, "I'm waiting for the hedgehog to cross the road." I look over and I'm like, "Man, that's a pine cone." He's like, "Oh," and then we continued on our way. I'm like, "A hedgehog? Okay,
Sure.
sounds good." Little Cheech and Chong moment there.
Oh, there's so many come to mind. Again, Amsterdam, where the pros and the amateurs commingle.
Yeah.
I was there on a press tour, not with the whole band, just me and another member of the band and one of our crew guys, just out doing promotion ahead of an album release. And we were going to go out and get some food, and we stopped at a coffee shop, coffee shop is where they would sell weed. Sat down, have a coffee with a joint that was rolled. This was incredibly strong mid-90s weed at a time when I could handle like American weed, but I was nowhere near prepared for what was happening every time I went into the Netherlands. I took 2 hits off a joint sitting with 2 other guys who we're all pleasantly having a chat, a lot of laughs. And within like 10 minutes, I had the exact same, and I entered a zone that was just like tripping on acid. I mean, I was gone. Like, gonzo, like, whoa, 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 and I'm sitting there, and I'm watching the 2 guys I'm with just carry on a conversation completely normally. They're everyday stoners. And I said, "Hey, I gotta go." And they're like, "What?" I said, I'm not gonna tie you guys down. I'm not gonna be any good at dinner. I got to get back to the hotel. Our hotel was 100 yards away. I walked out of that coffee shop. I stood there, and I was like, "I think it's to the right." And by the way, I have a great sense of direction. I never get lost when I'm walking around a city I've never been in. I can always find my way back. This is the one time, and I was literally 100 yards away down a straight alley, and I went, "I think it's to the right. I think it's to the right. And I turn to the right, and there's just so many. If you've ever been to Amsterdam, there's so many people. It's a summer night. Thousands of people on foot. It's a great city just to walk around and look at stuff sober. You don't have to be stoned. It's an incredible. I sound like I don't walk around normally talking about architecture, but it's just fascinating. I was just gonna say
architecture.
It's incredible. And I took a couple steps, and then I was like, no, I turned right into the coffee shop, so I was coming from the left. And then I turned around, and I took a few steps, and I looked to the left, and I'm looking down to the left, and I'm standing there, and literally one of the guys I was with comes out and walks up to me and goes, "It's this way, dude." He watched me from inside the coffee shop not know which way to go. And he came out, he goes, and it was to the right. He goes, it's right there. You can see, see that big red sign that says Marriott? I was like, oh, yeah, that's it. And I got to my room, and I put the TV on, and I sat in front of it. And the Batman movie that George Clooney was in came on.
The worst one.
I just remember that movie starting, and I thought, okay, it's calm, it's quiet, I'm alone. I'm going to watch this movie, and then I'll chill out, and I'll come down a little bit, and then maybe I'll get out and get a bite. Maybe I'll call home and see what's going on. But this movie's going to be perfect. It'll just take the edge off. And as I'm thinking about it, and I'm staring at the TV, and I'm like, okay, this will be perfect. This is probably like 2 hours long? And I kid you not, the next thing I remember is watching the end credits roll. And I was like, I hadn't moved. I hadn't closed my eyes once, but it all went by. No recollection. I was like, wait, I was going to watch the movie. Wait, it's already over. I looked at the clock. 2 hours had passed. I had not moved. I was just stuck in place. And like you said, Zeb, sometimes you think you're somewhere for an hour and it's 2 minutes. I thought I was sitting there for 2 minutes and it was 2 hours. I was like, no, I'm not getting out for a bite. I just have to lay down and hope to God I go to sleep.
Yeah, you can't. You've got to travel in twos when you're that stoned. A Somerset out there for a festival, stoned to the gills, and I just go over to the porta potties. And we got a little group there sitting kind of up back on the hill part, so not far from the porta potties. Go to the porta potty, take my leak, probably did a couple of oneies while I was in there, and then right back to the big blanket, right? Nope. I wandered around for like what I thought was an hour or two, couldn't find anyone. I'm like, did they leave me here? So finally, I just sat down on the bank, watched the show, got up after the show, and I'm like, well, I hope the car is still in the same spot. Now I'd sobered up just a little bit. I had my bearings, as it were, and I looked over to my right. They were like 10 feet away. They're like, hey, dude, what are you sitting over there for? We just thought you were just like high and wanted some time to yourself. But yeah, I must have walked past them 10 times looking for them, but some good weed. I don't even remember who the hell was playing. Ray on the KQ Facebook page, sharing a wild weed moment, and I think living Candace's best life. It was 1975. My friends and I went to see Black Sabbath at Parade Stadium in Minneapolis.
Oh, yeah.
We snuck in a grass mask. Remember when you could sneak things into concerts? It was a safer time, I guess. We snuck in a grass mask and a fresh lid. There's a 70s term for you. We started filling it, passing it up and down the row. At times we thought we lost it, but somehow down the row, or someone down the row would fill it and pass it back. We burned through the entire lid. Sabbath was in their prime and incredible. The gas mask, they got the grass mask into the concert.
Lucky.
Of course they
Well,
did.
it's not that hard to get high in a.
No, it's not, but they got a whole mask in, I suppose, I mean, this is a grass mask. This isn't a dugout. That's a good one.
Sabbath 75, was that a good time to have seen Black Sabbath?
Oh, yeah.
Is that like
So
Apex
was Ozzy,
Sabbath?
was Ozzy with them in 75? I don't know when he bolted, and because
he was there till 80 or 81.
Sabotage era, I believe.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I discuss Candace every time I say this, but I was a teenage boy. I didn't even know Ozzy was in Black. Ozzy was Blizzard of Oz. He was Randy Rhoads. I mean, it was, and then it was Ronnie James Dio. He was in Black Sabbath. You mean there's other Black Sabbath albums than Mob Rules? But I quickly figured it out.
The first time I saw Black Sabbath was in Chicago, and I was supposed to go with the guy that I was dating at the time, but we broke up, so I went alone, and I was going to sell the ticket, like his ticket there. That was the plan, and I did. I got like $100 for it. I was stoked. But then during the concert, I, slowly made my way up row by row. I was smoking with some people in in the audience, and I dropped that money and didn't even realize it. It was gone. I was too busy headbanging
until you sobered up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, God, I could use that. I'm hungry now. I need some breakfast.
People are very generous with their joints at concerts like that.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah. If they're not, then go. I don't know, see some polka or something. Yeah.
The first time I ever smelled the Mary Jane was at my first concert. It was Heart in 1978 at Rupp Arena in Lexington, Kentucky, and walked in the concourse, bright, shiny concourse, hear the opening artist on, me and two buddies, we go find our seats, and then, we go find our seats, and before I even kind of get a sense of what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing, it's also overwhelming. The smell hit me, and I was like, oh my God, what is that smell? And it's me and it's 3 8th grade boys. And then we're like, that must be pot. Like, oh my God, it's here. It's
Mom,
here.
Come and get me.
And there was a guy sitting right in front of us, and I can see his face to this day. He turned around and looked at us, took us in, and he had a box. He had a pack, like the box pack of Marlboro Reds. And he said, and he opened it up, and he goes, "You guys want one?" And but it wasn't cigarettes. It was joints. He had, and he pulled one out and lit it, and then he blew the smoke right at us, and that's when our suspicions were confirmed, and we were all like, "No, thank you. We're cool, but no, I'm totally cool, but no, thank you." And then, of course, contact high. We were stoned to the gills. I'm sure, looking back, but man, mind-boggling. Candace, I believe we have another caller.
Steve from Minneapolis.
Good morning, Steve.
Morning, gentlemen. I've talked before.
Yes, you have.
I got my marijuana back from Hawaii in my footstools, and I went to a party, and these people have never gotten high before. We had a great time because everybody was laughing their ass off.
I love
sure
the
they were.
Laugh there, yeah.
It was great pot.
How is it this morning?
Yeah, I was going to say, it still works, huh?
Well, yeah, because I had a brain aneurysm, and I laugh at funny stuff or even weird stuff.
I'm going to go with that one next time when someone accuses me of being high. No, brain aneurysm.
So how much did you bring back from Hawaii?
2 pounds.
Oh!
2 pounds?
Yep.
Did you fly?
Well, I knew I used to be stationed in Hawaii, so I had a local guy mail it back in a footstool.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's right. I forgot about the footstool. All right. Yeah, I had a brain aneurysm there for a moment.
That's top shelf, Steve. Thanks for the call, brother. We appreciate it.
Well, 2 pounds. Thank you, my man.
Please, the same to you.
Already there. Well,
wow.
That's 2 pounds. That's gutsy. I mean, 2 pounds. You're getting into the federal crimes. I worry about that. 2 pounds. I think you've told the story before, Steve, and I know I have. I drove over to South Dakota once. We were knew this guy, and we ended up picking up like about a pound. And I was very nervous about driving back with a pound, but it turned out, luckily or unluckily for us, it wasn't even weed, which we didn't even figure out till we got out in the middle of nowhere. We're like, well, should we smoke some of this? I'm like, I don't know, man. That's going to make us drive slow or worse, or we're going to have our blinker on going down the road. Maybe we should just wait till we get back. We do have a pound of weed, and we're crossing the state lines here, And so anyway, common sense didn't prevail. We pulled over and smoked it and smoked it and smoked it, and then smoked some more and went, crap, this isn't even weed. No wonder we got such a good deal on it. Yeah. I'll tell you, there is a story this morning, coincidentally, about a lady. It blows my mind. 2 pounds is nothing to this woman. We'll tell you what she got busted with over the weekend at a Memphis airport. 420 continues. We'd love to hear your wild weed stories. The game show, For the Record, the turntable, and the vinyl. That's at 8 o'clock. We're talking about weed stories this morning. The talk and text line is 651-989-ROCK. Dial up. Oh, I almost went into the game show thing there. I think I am having a brain aneurysm. I promise I'm not stoned yet. Hang tight.
Connect with us on the KQ Talk and Text line. 651-989-ROCK. That's 651-989-ROCK. 92 KQRS.
I'm Steve Gorman. This is the KQ Morning Show. That was the Allman Brothers Band, Ramblin' Man, of course. That was the lead single from Brothers and Sisters. That was the band's fourth studio album. That is post Duane Allman. That was Chuck Leavell's first album, joining as a piano player after Duane had died. That was one of the last tracks bassist Barry Oakley played on before he, like Duane before him, died in a motorcycle accident in Macon, Georgia. Dickie Betts passed away yesterday at the age of 80. That means there is one Allman brother left. J-Mo is still kicking. One of the sweetest men I've ever met. Dickie Betts, very few people would describe him that way. He was cantankerous and passionate and fiery and every adjective you've ever heard. He was a part of that. My buddy Steve Hyden wrote something yesterday about an incredible tone that was capable of sweetness and menace, just like the man himself. I sat in with the Allman Brothers once in 1996 in Boston. Wow. I got up on J-Mo's kit, actually, and so there I am sitting next to Butch Trucks at his drums, and we played Southbound, and I'm trying to, I'm trying to be the J-Mo. Yeah. I'm trying to be the J-Mo to Butch. Butch was not having it. He was like, just play straight, dumbass. That was the look on his face. But the thing that really struck me, I had already, not to be like name dropping douchebag guy, I'd already sat in with, and I'd played with Greg Allman before. So that didn't freak me out. And Warren Haynes was the other guitarist in the band. Warren and I had been friends for years at that point. I was excited to see Butch. I was excited to meet J-Mo, of course. But getting on that stage and then looking at the back of Dickie Betts' head, and I'm like, oh, that's Dickie Betts. That's not that guy that's playing his parts. That's him. Yeah. And a couple times he would turn back, look at his amp, and then look up, make eye contact with me. Didn't smile, just kind of a nod, like, okay, I see you. Yeah. And turn back. And it was just, of all of the things that go through your head when you sit in with the Allman Brothers, as I did one time, the main thing was, that's Dickie. Just don't get Dickie mad. Don't do anything weird.
Dickie.
just come on, Dickie. Give me some of that Dickie tone. And he was just blaring in my monitor. It was fantastic. Really special.
Watching some old interviews with Dickie Betts, and I think the most recent one was probably about 15 years ago on YouTube yesterday after I'd learned that he had passed away. And first of all, Ramblin' Man, he said every word of that song is autobiographical. Every Born in a Greyhound bus, the whole dang thing. That was pretty interesting that he didn't have to embellish a word. But they in one of the interviews they talked about him being a bit cantankerous, about Al. And he goes, well, it just all depends. Was it beer? Was it whiskey that day? Was it? He'd talk about, he got into the substance abuse a little bit, and there seemed to be a bit of regret. He goes, Greg and I, once had a conversation before he passed away about regrets, and he goes, you just can't have any. He said, but we do wish we were sober for just a little bit more of it.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure that's the case. Dickie made it to 80. Dickie Betts has a son who's a great musician in his own right. His name is Duane Betts. He was named, of course, for Duane Allman. Imagine being Dickie Betts, living to be 80 years old, and Duane Allman passed away when he was 24. And so Dickie has had, over 50 years of that guy, my musical brother and partner, like the greatest two-guitar attack the world had ever seen.
Right.
That guy left us all those years going. I mean, Greg Allman literally lost his brother when they were just kids. Duane lost his partner in crime. I just can't imagine all those decades of playing and knowing the guy that put me here, the guy that gave me the vision, the guy that basically said to me, do this with me. I have a vision for a band. Duane built that band. He shaped it, but he did it with Dickie. Before Greg was there, it was Duane and Dickie. And, I just think about that, that kind of a loss for the world. To lose Duane Allman at the age of 24 is still astonishing.
Yeah, I've had conversations with friends, those happy hour conversations where you're like, if you could have one, somebody might say John Lennon, it was just getting back into the swing and, God, the music we could have had. And a lot of people bring up the Skinnerd plane crash. And I brought up that one, Duane Allman, because not even in his prime, approaching his prime, with those musicians, his brothers, and Dickie Betts, music, certainly classic rock. And I'm not just talking about a genre, would be different today had they remained together. And And I don't know exactly in what way, but that's certainly the one that comes to top of mind when I think, boy, if you could have one back in that time.
Allman Brothers, truly a unicorn in terms of not just American, but world music. I've said it a million times. They weren't Southern rock. They were just the Allman Brothers band. They were everything. They had their own lane. And now, it's just kind of astonishing to think that there's only, like I said, J-Mo is the only guy still remaining. The rest of the band, the rest of the original members all passed away now. But man, I mean, thank God they hit the record button because that music's not going anywhere anytime soon. Tomorrow's 420. Tomorrow's also Record Store Day, and look, if you haven't seen the Allman Brothers live, or if you have seen them live and you weren't stoned, I will say you probably missed a couple of notes. We've been talking about some weed experiences that people have had along the way. We've had a few callers. Do we have anybody on the horn right now, Candace?
Shelly from Woodbury.
Shelly, thank you for your patience, dear. Good morning. What have you got for us?
Hey, I just wanted to tell you about, I was stationed in the Air Force in Germany in the early 80s.
Wiesbaden?
And my boyfriend and I went for a walk, and we were smoking some hash out of our pop can hash pipe.
Right.
Pop can.
And there's a cow out in this pasture, and we were standing by the fence, and she comes wandering up to us. We decided, well, hell, let's give her a little high. We gave her a little shotgun of hash. She stood there staring at us, walked away, weaved a little bit back and forth, turned around, came back for more.
Sure.
We got that cow high every time we went for a walk.
Moo,
It was a good time,
baby.
from what I remember.
Oh, that is fantastic. There's an elderly German gentleman who tells the story of, this was the strangest thing. One day she was producing more milk than ever. I never knew what happened.
Who knew? I thought feeding them grass was a good thing, but apparently a little smoke in the grass might be good for milk production.
That is outstanding.
Were you stationed in Wiesbaden when you were over there? Was that the Air Force base?
I was at Hahn Air Force Base, little bitty place.
Yeah, okay.
Well,
Very cool. Thanks for your service.
I appreciate, Shelley, the fact that you said, that's all I got. Like, that's not enough. Getting German cows stoned is the kind of thing that we look upon with great light over here. So you're shining bright today, darling. Have a great weekend.
You did it for the country.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Chad on the KQ Facebook page, 651-989-ROCK, the talk and text line. I'd love to hear your weed stories this morning. Chad, I'm going to have to paraphrase some of this here. About a dozen years ago, my ex-wife and I flying to Florida and the Bahamas for a three-week trip. And she said, no sneaking weed over. Again, I'm paraphrasing some of this. No sneaking weed over. I said, nope, I promised I would not do that. We arrived at the airport, got through security, finally found our gate. Once we sat down to wait to board our plane, I let out a huge sigh of relief, followed by a slight chuckle. She looked at me and said, please tell me you did not bring weed on the plane. I told her, no, I didn't. Then I informed her that she did. Chad. That's a bold Earlier that morning, I handed her a few of those 7-day plastic pill containers and asked her to put them in her purse for me. I failed to mention that I had emptied the contents of 21 large vitamin capsules and refilled them with some finely ground kind bud. She was super pissed for about 2 minutes until we realized we had enough weed for the whole trip. Oh, Chad, yeah, you live on the edge, my man. I wouldn't be worried about the authorities if I were you. Yeah.
No, not at all. Aaron on the Facebook page. So the Facebook post, we said, sharing our wildest weed moments. He simply wrote, nice try, narc. Here's a good one from Deba. High school back in the 70s. I had a civics class with a couple of guys, both of whom probably the biggest potheads in town. We had a substitute teacher one day. After roll call, one of the dudes went to a work table on the other side of a pod wall, so he couldn't be seen from the teacher's desk where the substitute was sitting. The sub was basically a babysitter, of course, never actually taught, so the class became a study hall. After moving to the other table, dude pulled out a bag and some papers and began to roll joints. Yes, in the classroom. Other guy next to me is pitching a fit and whispering fiercely, telling him to stop. First guy just smiled and kept on rolling. The substitute finally realized something was up, walked around the pod to see what was going on. Both the guy near me and I are warning the first dude to stop. He refused. Substitute walked up behind him, saw what he was doing, put a hand on his shoulder and said, "You're not supposed to be rolling cigarettes in class. Go back to your desk." We were stunned. And I tell that story for anybody out there of the younger generation. Like, my kids are both in their 20s, and at their school they went to in Nashville, my son was looking through an old yearbook one day from the 70s, and there's just a photo of 4 or 5 kids smoking cigarettes. Like, they're in the area where you could go smoke, and he came home from school and goes, "There used to be a smoking section at school." And I went, "Yeah, what do you mean?" He goes, "Wait, was that like every school?" I go, "Dude, yeah, what are you talking about?" Severna Park Junior High School had a smoking lounge. I mean, it was like, man, everybody smoked in the 70s. That was the thing.
Oh, yeah, it was.
So rolling joints, that's nothing. They were bouncing Camel filterless around like there was no tomorrow.
I remember bumming cigarettes in the parking lot in high school from teachers.
Of course.
Even coaches during track season. I remember sitting out there having a smoke with the track coach, about an hour before I was going to go out and run 50 laps or something like that. Of course, your young lungs could take it back then.
Hey, Johan Cruyff was one of the greatest soccer players and then later on coaches and managers ever from the Netherlands, Dutch player. He played in the NASL in the early 80s for the team from Los Angeles, and they played in Memphis. Road trip because, oh, my God, we're going to see the great Johan Cruyff. He walks out of the stadium after a game with a lung dart, just burning a cigarette. He just played 90 minutes of soccer, and we were all like, oh, my God. Yeah, it was a different time. Candace, do we have someone else on the KQ Talk and text line?
Glenn from Burnsville.
Glenn, good morning.
Good morning, guys. How we all doing this fine morning?
We're great, brother. What have you got for us?
Hey, I got one for you. You might not remember it. You might be too young, but I think Brian and all the others might. Back in the late 70s, early 80s, do you remember that slogan, "Forget the whales, save the bales," back in the Jersey coastline?
I can't say I do.
It's vague.
Okay, well, back in the late 70s, early 80s, there was a big barge out in the ocean that got boarded by Coast Guard, and they were throwing bales off the boat.
Okay.
So we were down there. We were fishing. We didn't know about this at the time. We were down there fishing, and I'm standing there, and this thing come rolling up and hit me in the leg. I looked down, like, what the hell?
Hello.
I snatched it up. I ran it back. I threw it in my trunk, and I went back fishing again, and here comes Coast Guard, Border Patrol, cruising down.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, you guys seen anything roll up on the shore at all? No, we haven't seen nothing. Well, if you see anything, you leave it alone because it's marijuana, and we're trying to recapture it. Oh, okay, all right, whatever. So he got probably like maybe a quarter to half mile away. This other thing come rolling up on the shore about 15 yards from me. I ran over, grabbed it, ran it up to the car, threw it in the trunk, went back fishing again. Well, I'm thinking, okay, I got 2 big bags of pot. Well, I opened one up. Yep, one was pot, that's for sure. And the other one was loaded with cash.
Cash. Hello.
Hey. We had one heck of a party on the Jersey coastline down by, like, between Myrtle Beach and Ocean City, Maryland area, down that way. And the cash, when I got it home and counted it out, $225,000 in cash.
What?
Wait a minute.
That's the equivalent of winning the lottery back in the 19th. Those were things we only dreamed about. Okay, was there more to this story?
No, that was basically it. And they found over like 30 bales. There was 10 pounds in each bag of pot. And we had one heck of a party that night on the beach, pumping it up.
Well, I tell you what, man, I hope 43 years is long enough for that person who's been looking for that 225 large. Good gracious, I'd be looking over my shoulder for the rest of my life. I love that. That's fantastic.
That's why I live in Minnesota now, not in Texas.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right. That's awesome. Well, hey, thank you for that story, my man. Have a great weekend.
Hide in the Midwest.
Guys, have a good one.
Wow, yeah, thanks for sharing it. That's very cool that you shared that. That's, those are the things you sit around when you're broke and you've got yourself a bag full of seeds and shake that you can only dream about. Not only do you get the score of weed washing up on the beach, but $225K in untraceable cash.
I remember a conversation with my roommate in college, Roy, one summer. And a buddy of his had stumbled across like $700 in cash somewhere, like in a park. So, found literally like a bag of $100 bills. And we were sitting there going, oh my God, $700. And we were like, what would we do with that money? And we both came around at the exact same moment. We'd be like, oh, we'd die. We'd do something so stupid, we'd be dead. Like we couldn't possibly maintain life with that much money. $700. Can you imagine finding $225,000 when you're young and even dumber than we are today? And by the way, I love that caller. I appreciate him thinking I'm younger than everybody else. I might not remember the early 80s. I like that. Yeah. He's like, yeah, you remember Zep, but I don't know about you, Steve.
Yeah, I know. I'm just trying to think of finding all of that and then having the pot, man, because now an hour later, I'd be so freaking paranoid. I'm not sure that'd be a good mix, but he pulled it off. It still sounds pretty laid back about it. I like it. We're going to drive on tomorrow, also Record Store Day right here in Minnesota and around the world. And so we're going to a game show right now. We need a couple of callers, 989-651, make that 989-ROCK. Callers 9 and 2. We're playing for a new turntable and LPs from Thin Lizzy, Mark Knopfler, and Alice in Chains. Record Store Day tomorrow from Electric Fetus. Thank you to the Fetus for that. Our runner-up today gets LPs from Paul McCartney and Bruce Dickinson. We're playing For the Record. You're going to have to know some things about not only classic rock albums, but the record player itself. All right? 651. Don't get stoned until after the game show. 651-989-ROCK. Dial up. Good luck and hang tight.
It's the KQ Morning Show, 92 KQRS. Zep, Tony, Candace, and Steve Gorman are the KQ Morning Show. 92 KQRS.
I'm Steve Gorman. This is the KQ Morning Show. Good Friday morning, April 19th, meaning tomorrow is 420. It's also Record Store Day, which is kind of exciting. And in a few minutes, we're going to give away a turntable and some albums because, that's how we like to roll.
Yeah.
In the meantime, because it is 420 tomorrow, a lot of people want to stay home. You don't want to get out. You just want to kick back, enjoy the weekend. A few stoner-friendly movies or TV shows are recommended. I've got a list in front of me. Top on that list is, of course, local boys, the Coen brothers, The Big Lebowski.
Oh, yeah.
The Big Lebowski was the first movie they released after Fargo. Like, Fargo won Oscars. Fargo was a cultural moment in time. Like, everybody I knew was obsessed with Fargo. And then the next time you hear about this movie coming out, everybody, again, that I knew, myself included, was like, oh my God, how are they going to possibly top Fargo? And I walked out of The Big Lebowski so confused, so bewildered. I was funny. I enjoyed
so entertained,
it.
But yeah.
But I was like, what on earth did I just see? I've never been more bewildered.
Fargo a little bit myself too, but that's a Coen brothers reaction. All I knew after both of those movies was that I was going to watch them again very soon.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No. For without doubt. Fargo, I just swallowed it whole and was blown away in real time. Big Lebowski, I mean, I wasn't stoned and I felt stoned. I mean, the whole time I was like, man, that's a movie. You do not have to smoke. If you want to know what it's like to be stoned, just watch that movie. It was like, because it all makes kind of sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like everything's just a little off. Like, kind of confused. I mean, I'm following it. I see what's happening here, I think, which is exactly what I'm like when I'm stoned. I'm like, I understand what you're talking about. I'm nodding, and I'm doing my best to make you think I'm okay. Sure. That's what I felt like watching that entire movie.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, almost probably top of the list for stoner movies. I'm not looking at your list, but that one right there is one I might have to work into the weekend.
That's pretty great. I always take exception to Dazed and Confused being on these lists because it's more than you don't have to. They're smoking pot in the movie, but the movie's got so much there's so much more going on, if you will.
I don't think with that one, it's the smoking pot and watching it. I think of Planet of the Apes. I think of sci-fi movies. Those are the movies I like to watch when I get stoned. But Dazed and Confused, I suppose, because of the Dazed and Confused and the pot references in it. But you certainly don't need to be smoking weed to enjoy that movie. I don't know if you enjoy it more, is what I'm trying to say.
I don't. I agree with you. There's enough in there. It's just got so much heart. Anyway, I love that movie. I defend it. I fight about it. I will die on the hill that Dazed and Confused is one of the greatest films of my lifetime. There, I didn't even call it a movie. I called it a film. That's how much I like it.
I got a good stoner movie I bet you guys aren't super familiar with, maybe.
Lay it on me.
Idle Hands.
IDOL or
Idle.
IDLE?
Idle.
As in
IDLE.
Okay,
Yeah.
making sure.
1999.
Never heard of it.
Sounds familiar. Give me just a quick rundown. Pitch it to me.
Reese Witherspoon?
Nope, a kid. They're all partying and stuff, smoking and stuff. He gets his hand possessed by the devil.
Oh, wait a second. Who stars in
And then
this?
life gets more interesting. Seth Green's in it.
Yeah.
Jessica Alba's actually in it too. The main dude, I don't know his name, but
I've
I
not
was
seen
obsessed with it because Tom DeLonge from Blink-182 was in it.
Oh, yeah. There you
It was
go.
just the creepiest,
Really?
weirdest movie. In high school, we were just freaking out about it all the time.
Is he the alien UFO guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Curious.
Yeah.
Idle
Yeah.
Hands. Never even heard of it.
Well, you got something to do this weekend. You're welcome.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, we need some fresh material here as far as the stoner movies go. Idle Hands. Yeah, I was just Googling it. Yeah, I've not seen it, but I think I've heard of this movie. Well, I did just hear of it.
I do think that long play albums were designed with stoners in mind. Every 20 minutes or so, you have to stand up across the room, flip the album over on its side. That's to keep you from settling into the beanbag chair too deeply. It's to make sure you don't get so stuck in that sofa that you need help to get out. So the album is your friend, especially on 420. And with that in mind, how about a new turntable and some albums from our friends at Electric Fetus? We're going to give those away right now. We've got a game to play. What are we calling this game?
We're calling it For the Record, and we're going to go with some classic rock album information here. I am going to multiple choice this because after I failed it myself, I thought I started to feel mercy last night when we were slapping it together, and I thought
you did go into those gummies. Oh my God!
Not quite yet, my man. Not quite yet. Maybe the last hour of the show. We have a couple of guests on. Might be a bad time to do that. I don't know. But yeah, so we've got some album, and then also we're going to get into the technical because this is for vinyl. This is for a record player. We want it going to a good home, someone that knows what they're doing, what buttons to push, how to drop a needle, that kind of thing. So we'll also get some record trivia in here. We just need a couple of contestants to make it happen.
All right, then. It's time. Candace, who is contestant number one?
All right. We have Pete from Minneapolis.
Pete, good morning.
Morning.
You ready to rock this game?
Rock and roll. P. Pablo's here.
Let's do it.
All right, Pete, here we go. First question. Name one speed in revolutions per minute, RPMs in other words, that a standard 12-inch record would play at. Just one speed for us here, please.
I want to say 45, but I would say, let's say 9.
How about you stick with 45?
45 works.
Yeah, you had 33 and a third technically would have accepted 33, 45s, or 78s. There's some other speeds out there if you go way back to the gramophone days, but we're not doing that. We're talking about the record player that you're going to get. So 33 and a third and 45 revolutions per minute. You're on the board. You've got one. Number 2, of these 3 best-selling albums of all time, AC/DC's Back in Black, Michael Jackson's Thriller, and the Eagles, their greatest hits 1971 to 75, which one of those 3 albums sold the most? Top of the chart.
Well, I hate 2 out of 3, so I'm going to say Thriller.
Yeah, that's it. Thriller, 72 million as of March of 2024.
That boy.
You've got AC/DC's Back in Black at 52 million albums moved, and the Eagles, their greatest hits, 71 to 75, 48 million, 2 for 2, Pete. You're knocking it out of the park. Question number 3, 5 for you this morning. Which of these following terms was often used to describe the flip side of an album or a 45 single? Multiple choice. Would it be offside, far side, B-side, or backside?
You're Killing Me, Spalls, B-side.
Yeah, I know. This is too easy for you, man. Right away with Pete, I'm like, he's going to blow through this. Steve, be thinking of a tiebreaker, my man. I don't have one. All right, 4, Pete. Which Deep Purple album has the classic hit "Smoke on the Water"? I'm going to give you multiple choice. I don't think you need it. Is it Machine Head, Deep Purple and Rock, Fireball, or Shallow Purple?
I'm going to go with A, Alex.
Machine Head, that's a top 5 album for me. But you talk about getting stoned and dropping a needle and listening to an entire side of an album right there. I mean, and then it would just go.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
If you didn't have the automatic turntable before you'd get up, that one right there, Machine Head, top of the list for me. And probably 5 for 5 here for you, Pete. What was on the cover of Led Zeppelin's debut album? Was it a crippled hermit carrying wood? Prehistoric naked children, a burning Zeppelin blimp, or Jimmy Page getting a perm?
That's a tough one, Alex. What is a burning blimp?
Yeah, when I put this together last night, I'm not going to lie, I was stoned, and I thought, these are too hard. No one's going to get them, and they're going to be pissed at me. I don't have Tony's flair for this. Why am I doing this? Why isn't Candace doing this? But, yeah, Pete, not bad. 5 for 5. Sorry I insulted your album knowledge and record player knowledge this morning.
Pretty
Chris,
strong,
I said that
Pete.
yesterday we had a 5 for 5, and then contestant number 2 had like a 2 for 5, so I don't want to make this sound too easy. We need another gimme here, I guess, Candace. Contestant.
All right. Let's do Gary from St. Cloud.
Gary, good morning, sir.
St. James, I'm sorry.
St. James.
Good morning. Saints.
Are you ready to try your best? Pete went 5 for 5 on this one, so your work is cut out for you, sir.
I hope I'm ready.
Let's do it.
All right. Right off the top here, Gary. Name one record store in Minnesota.
Electric Fetus.
There you go. Bing, bang, boom.
Wow.
Right.
Strong.
All right. Second one. Which of these common terms for the needle, the part of the record player that makes contact with the vinyl record, what's a common term for that? Is it a pointer? Is it a stylus? Is it a quill? Or is it a thingamajig?
Stylus.
It is a stylus. Number 3. What name did the Beatles' double self-titled album become popularly known as? The Beatles again, the White Album, the Red Album, or the Brown Album?
The White Album.
Yeah, I know. I should have taken out the multiple choice on these guys, but I got to, treat Gary like I treated Pete, right? By the way, the Brown Album, one of our best of KQ Morning Show CDs we put out.
Sure.
What does the abbreviation LP mean? Long playing, live process, lasting polyethylene, or lost puppy?
Long playing.
You're right, sir. And
Bingo.
yeah, let's get this one, and then we can get on to the tiebreaker. That might be more entertaining. This Pink Floyd album, currently the 4th biggest selling album of all time. However, it has spent more time on the Billboard Top 200 selling album chart, a staggering 950 weeks, just over 18 years. Is it The Wall, Animals, Pinky and the Floyd, or Dark Side of the Moon?
Dark Side of the Moon, one of my favorites.
One of my favorites. I'm embarrassed, and I apologize for the record. I just want to say that. But the tiebreaker, Steve, make him work for it, buddy.
All right, we got a tiebreaker question, gentlemen. I'll ask you both the same question, and then if it's okay with you, we'll have Pete answer first, and then we'll get Gary's answer. And here is your question. The Beatles, a pop group from England you may be familiar with, their biggest selling album in the United States, this is a surprise to a lot of folks, is in fact, it's not Sgt. Pepper, it's not Abbey Road, it is the Beatles. The so-called White Album is the biggest selling album in the U.S. How many times platinum? How many millions of copies has the White Album sold in America? Pete, what do you think? PD.
He just got bored with it. He's like, this is an insult to my intelligence, and left.
I guess so. Did we lose Pete?
Oh, there he is. Okay, there he is.
Sorry,
Come on
Pete.
back,
Give me your answer again, Pete. How many millions?
3.
3 million copies. Gary?
3 times platinum.
3 times platinum for the White Album in America, the biggest selling Beatles album. Gary, what do you think?
I'm going to say 4 then.
Well, Gary, you're going to win because the answer is 24 million.
Holy crap.
Yeah, that's
24.
in all-time U.S. sales. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's the 6th biggest selling album in American history at 24 million copies. That's a whole lot of people listening to Piggies and Revolution number 9. Go figure.
Number 9.
Gentlemen, well played.
Yeah.
Pete, you did great. You're our runner-up. You're going to get new LPs from Paul McCartney and Bruce Dickinson. Gary, you, my friend, have a new turntable. Some LPs from Thin Lizzy, Mark Knopfler, and Alice in Chains, all to celebrate Record Store Day. All of that from our friends at Electric Fetus. Thanks to the Fetus, and thank you both, gentlemen, for playing.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You
Well,
got
I've
it.
learned a little something about game shows here this morning, and that is do not, when it comes to albums, classic rock trivia, and the KQ audience, they've been raised right here by 92.5. I need to make it a hell of a lot harder.
They've been
I don't
paying
know who
attention.
I thought I was going to get, but I thought, if you make it too hard, they're going to get pissed at you, man. You don't want a couple of offers. And, my bad.
I tell you
live and
something.
you learn.
This is what goes through my mind when I looked up that tiebreaker question. So a couple years ago, we all freaked out when Peter Jackson's Get Back documentary was released on Disney Plus, and a lot of people, we all watched 8 hours of the Beatles struggling to make the album that eventually was called Let It Be, but was initially the working title was Get Back, the Get Back Sessions. Here's the craziest thing about where the Beatles were in 1968. They released the White Album in November. It was immediately number 1 all over the world, and it was immediately on track to surpass Sgt. Pepper as their biggest selling album. And they started the Get Back sessions 6 weeks later.
I mean, just when you watch the
6 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it is mind-boggling. I mean, when you start the Get Back documentary from Peter Jackson, the daunting. They're going to record an entire album, 14 new songs. They didn't fudge. 14 was 14. That's how many songs went on a new album. They were going to write it, record it live, and what was it, 2 weeks? Was it 3 weeks or something like that? They started right after the 1st of January, and they were going to have this sucker ready to go for a live TV audience of all new music, by the way, performed live and recorded. I mean, can you imagine? Is there any other band that's even come close to attempt? Now, they didn't pull it off, I should add, but that was the hubris of that band at the time that they thought, oh yeah, we'll just do that.
Well, it's just the idea of, we've got to do something to keep it interesting. Know, it's funny, to your point, you said, has any other band ever done something like that? My former band, the Black Crowes, I mentioned earlier in the show.
You guys did record an album live in front of an audience.
We recorded an album. We did a similar thing, not quite the amount of pressure the Beatles were under. We went to Levon Helm's barn, recording studio performance hall, the Midnight Ramble up in Woodstock, New York in early 2009. And we spent 3 weeks there. And like Monday through Friday, we would just write and arrange new songs. And then on the Friday and Saturday nights of 3 consecutive weekends, we would perform them in front of a live audience. Now, we thought, wouldn't it be cool if we ended up with a live album out of this? Of a new album played live, like a live album of new material. But we didn't know we could pull it off. We didn't just, and we certainly didn't book a TV special, and we didn't, we weren't the Beatles with the world watching. Yeah. We were a band that, had a nice little run, but we were just looking to do something different. And,
were you thinking about what the Beatles had done? Was there somebody like,
no,
the Beatles tried to pull this off back
in
69?
It was, we were really just wanted to do something at Levon's barn. It was a great place, and we thought, we could do this. And we really didn't have a master plan going in. Now, as it turned out, we did release an album, and it was a double album of all new material. And whether that material's all up to snuff or not is, listeners' discretion. But we had some great takes. The drums are amazing. There's some good. It was really good. But it was like in the woods, in the winter, in a barn. It was the most comfortable. It was a room built for music by a guy who was just living and breathing music his whole life. Yeah. The Beatles loaded into a vacant, cold sound stage, and they set up folding chairs in a semicircle around the drum kit. and sat there on little metal, uncomfortable chairs on a concrete floor writing all those songs. It was like the least creative and the least inspiring environment imaginable. And oh, by the way, Let It Be, not a bad album.
Oh, no. I mean, especially if anyone's ever checked out that Naked Let It Be, the Paul McCartney remastered decades later, it is the best thing ever. It's how that album should have sounded, and it's a whole new way to listen to that album. Just fantastic. But yeah, I mean, I put it right up there with the rest of the Beatles albums. I don't put it at the top, but it's not a cast off like, there's their entire catalog of work, and then there's that piece of crap. No, there's
I love it because it's such a reminder of just what a great band they were. Because the interplay, the live tracks are, everyone knows the Rooftop. Let me tell you something. That Rooftop track, that Rooftop gig to musicians is sacrosanct. It's like, wait a minute, they were up there and it was 49 degrees and windy, and they played like that. Yeah, with cables that were run up 6 flights of stairs to plug everything in. Oh, okay. Down. Yeah, I think every band on earth comes across that and goes, I think we need to rehearse some more.
Yeah, right. Not bad. All right, what were we talking about? Well, it's 420. We've got Record Store Day coming up. We've been talking about 420. Could talk about this big bust at the airport.
Oh, that's right.
And we want to hear your wild weed stories. We'll go back to the KQ Facebook post. Make a contribution. Give us a call this morning, 651-989-ROCK. Your wild weed stories coming. Hang tight.
Connect with us on the KQ Talk and Text line, 651-989-ROCK. That's 651-989-ROCK. 92 KQRS.
I'm Steve Gorman. This is the KQ Morning Show. It's Friday, April the 19th. Tomorrow is 420. A woman in Memphis, a 21-year-old woman. Hell, I'll call her a 21-year-old girl. I mean, I know legally. Look, I have a 21-year-old daughter. She's a kid. You know what I mean? She's very bright, very together, very mature, very responsible. She's a kid. Anyway, a 21-year-old woman not named Marley Gorman was arrested Sunday at the airport in Memphis, Tennessee, getting ready, I guess, for her big 420 weekend. She was holding a couple of suitcases, and one of them, according to the police report, one of them burst open while it was on a luggage cart. A policeman happened to notice this and said, can I take a look inside there? And she said, sure, go for it. The bag had 56, her suitcase had 56 pounds of marijuana.
First of all, you're just getting greedy. Secondly, she's like, yeah, check it out. I mean, it's really, how about just, I don't know, 30 pounds seems excessive to me.
How about 56 ounces? And then you're like, maybe he won't notice.
I mean, you're just trying to get it all done. And I appreciate her ambition here. But think it through. 56 pounds. And you've packed your suitcase. Apparently your suitcase without really good latches on it.
Yeah, it was actually multiple bags. It was 3 bags she had total.
Oh, yeah.
And throughout the 3 bags, 56 pounds of weed. I said earlier on the show, this is 30 years ago. Long story short, I picked up an ounce of weed from a friend of a friend. A guy had some weed, and I was able to facilitate getting an ounce of weed. The band was working, all living in a house in Atlanta, and there was no pot. And I was like, I know a guy. I ended up going and picking it up. I don't even smoke. And I'm driving home with a Ziploc bag with 1 ounce of weed, which is a full-size, large Ziploc bag, like a gallon size. It fits in there pretty nicely. But that's a lot of weed. 1 ounce. Yeah. It's weed is not compact. You know what I mean? It's light but bulky, if you will. 56 pounds of weed. Is so much pot. I mean, if you've not seen, what a pound of weed looks like, you can't imagine what 56 pounds looks like.
Yeah, right. I mean, and when you think about, I don't know, what a square bale weigh, about 30 pounds or something like that. So she had almost a couple of square bales worth of pot with her. And here's the other thing. What's it legal in? Almost half the states now, 23 or 24 states, I forget, where it's legal in. You could have literally bought this 4 hours away somewhere, go in any direction somewhere, and you could have bought as much pot as, you can't buy 56 pounds, but you know what I mean. And just drive it across or something like that, or take your time. There's no reason in America today, with half the states with legalized weed, that you have to be flying with several bags totaling 56 pounds of marijuana.
She is 21, and I do believe you have to be 25 to rent a car.
Oh, you do?
I believe so. Is that? And my daughter actually said you can rent a car if you're 21 now, but they charge you more. Is that true?
Yeah, that's what it is. I think it's 21 is the age.
I love it. Well, at 18, you can be flying around in a helicopter in the Army, driving a tank if you want.
Sure. Well, different strokes for different folks.
Right.
This is just such an amazing amount of weed to see one person trying to shuffle through. I got popped at TSA a few years ago in St. Louis. It was the silliest thing. I was traveling with some remote radio gear, like a little Comrex rig and a microphone and a little system so I could do radio while from a hotel room, record some segments and upload them for my syndicated show. And in my bag, I have a shoulder bag, and it's got my laptop and then all the cords and a microphone and the little rig you plug it into, and also this little, it's like a condenser microphone boosting thing, and the brand name is a dynamite stick. You know what I'm talking about? You've seen that.
I have, yeah. I have one for one of my rigs at home.
Yeah. It's just a little piece of a studio equipment, and you plug your microphone cord into that, and then that goes into the rig. And anyway, long story short,
third testicle, just
exactly.
Boom, yeah.
You plug that in, and then you start to talk like this. It's it's just it makes you sound better. Yeah. It's in my bag, and it's a little round. It's like not even the size of a cigar. It's small. But in the package, it says on there, dynamite stick. TSA guy going through my bag, pulls it out, and he's like, whoa, what is this? What is this? And I went, that's a microphone. It's a part of that microphone. And he goes, it says dynamite on it. And I looked at him and I went, it's called a dynamite stick. And he goes, it's a dynamite stick, literally.
Oh, God.
And he says, just stand right there. And I said, it's not
Has he
an
ever
explosive.
Seen a stick of dynamite? Good Lord.
I said, this is not an explosive. It is a piece of audio equipment. And then he sets the thing down, asks me to step around to the side, calls over the supervisor, and then another person comes with the supervisor, and 3 TSA people grill me about this dynamite stick. And the guy is like, I said, you can just take that top off and look in there. It's a little piece for a microphone. And they were so freaked out. And I make the point, okay, you're doing your job. I get it. You got to make sure planes are safe. But that's what happens at TSA with one little mechanical implement. 56 pounds of weed, 56 pounds of anything. 56 pounds of anything not clothing and toiletries you're gonna get noticed. I think it's pretty much just that simple.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's that and your bag popped open, I tell you what, if I'm stuffing a bag full of marijuana to fly with over state lines, when that's typically how you fly. I guess you could take a commuter inside some of these states. But my point being, boy, it would have the best latches. It'd have a lock on it. It would have that, and they randomly check. I was on a run there for a while where they would how you open up your bag when you get to where you're going, your checked bag, and there's a note in there, TSA note saying, hey, we looked through your bag. By the way, I'm pretty sure I had pot in one of those bags, not 56 pounds, but my point being, they randomly check your bags, and you had a few of them just crammed full of pot. So, well, the story could have only ended one way. I got a feeling she was like a decoy or something for the real pot runners that were taking a reasonable amount through, and we'll just get this dummy to do it.
She had the skunk weed for sure, and then the real stuff was going elsewhere.
I think you might be right.
When the band used to travel a good bit, we always flew, based in Atlanta, big international airport. We'd always fly home. There were several times we would return from Europe, and by the time we cleared immigration and got to the international baggage claim, our bags would have already been pulled off. And they were all lined up, and they'd have a dog walking around them. Literally, like they knew exactly bags. Which bags were ours.
Oh, yeah.
And every time we were always just, how you doing? There'd be a guy with a dog. What's up, man? How you doing? Oh, look at that dog. And we just were, because nobody was traveling with anything. Because as you said, Zep, you can get it where you're going. And I used to say that, like, when they'd occasionally, like, do you have any drugs or any paraphernalia in there? And I'd go, no, they have it here. Like, why would I bring it? But a great musician friend of mine, Donnie Heron, he's a fiddle player from Nashville. He came back from a tour, and he was standing at the Atlanta airport at the baggage claim, about to go through customs from Amsterdam. And he saw a dog approaching. They just had the drug dog walking around because of flight from Amsterdam. And as he's standing there, he just put his hand in his pocket, like just as you do. Yeah. And he immediately went, uh-oh. And he had a big, like, a big lump, like the size of an Almond Joy of, like, straight up hash, just hashish. And it was in his hand, and he looked at it. And there's a dog 15 feet away walking towards him. And he just said, there's only one thing I could do. And he just swallowed it. He just put it in his mouth and chewed it and swallowed it.
There's
a big block of hash. And then the dog walked up and immediately, like, sat down, like this guy is carrying.
It's my buddy.
And they pulled him aside. He didn't have anything else on him. He was like, no, man. I mean, I was in Amsterdam and I was smoking when I was there, but I'm clean. I don't have anything with me. And so, if you ingest THC, it's very different than smoking THC.
Oh, hell yeah.
And a pure just chunk of, just picture like a chunk of a chunky candy bar.
I'd be sweating, starting to wait. When does the puke come? When do I start freaking out?
I asked him, I said, of course, he was telling me this story, and I said, how long were you stoned? And he goes, I kid you not, 5 days. I was like, wow. Yeah, that's a commitment. That's a commitment to excellence I'm not willing to make.
No.
I'd rather go to jail than be that stoned for 5 days. I think I would handle it better.
I find, pot is one of those things. It's worldwide, man. I found on every vacation I've gone on that you can, with very little effort, just drop a reference and somebody knows someone, usually in the frickin' hotel lobby, the person behind the desk or something like that. And pretty soon they're like, they give you a little chuckle or something like that. And as you're getting on the elevator, they come walking by you. Hey, I know a guy here. If you want to come down to the lobby in about a half hour, something like that. It's not difficult to get. That whole traveling with it thing is. I just couldn't get comfortable doing that. I have done it, but way too weird about it. Must have been something about the paranoia that comes with it. Pot.
So tomorrow's 420. It's also Record Store Day. We've left off the most important thing that tomorrow is.
What?
We haven't mentioned. Tomorrow is Husband Appreciation Day.
Aww.
Good luck. Well, of course, they're doubling it up with 420 Day, Record Store Day, some big days. Oh, and by the way, it's a Husband Appreciation Day.
Apparently, it's the third Saturday in April every year. First I've ever heard of it. Husband
Every
Appreciation
year you get
Day.
one? Jeez.
Every day is Wife Appreciation Day.
You're right, Steve.
That's right. I guess we're supposed to feel appreciated more or less. I don't know. But most husbands I know, it's like, do you feel like you are underappreciated? Yeah, I do. What would you like to change? Nothing. Just the last thing I want is more appreciated. Like, no, I don't need someone to tell me I'm doing a great job. After a while, it just makes me feel worse than when they don't say it.
I mean, maybe you could leverage it for some time to yourself. Like, can I just hang out and do whatever the hell I want? Do I have to do the home fix-it-up project? It's spring, the list is long of things to do. Can I just take the day off? Sure, why not?
Yeah,
maybe you can get away with that. I don't know what else to do with it, Because I'm not a husband.
No, I'd be good. I'd be fine just to leave it right there. Another thing I would be remiss if I didn't mention again, on 92KQRS.com, you can vote for the Minnesota's bestest. We've got a poll up of all the best things going in Minnesota, and a few of these categories right now are running very, very tight, so please get in there and vote. One of the things that is a neck-and-neck dogfight right now is over best karaoke bar.
Oh, yeah.
I have no input on this. I'm not familiar with the karaoke scene locally, but I'd be interested to hear, Candace, what you think. Where
Otter Bar all the way. Otter Saloon.
Otter Saloon.
Otter stop on by, or how's it go?
Yep, you oughter stop on by.
Yeah, Yeah, it's not
Okay.
far from the old radio station, just down the street.
They're a KQ bar, too. They all love KQRS.
Yeah,
Well,
that's the place I went in and sang Every Rose Has Its Thorn really, really, really drunk one night. And it was so bad that everyone in the bar started singing just to drown me out. It was really kind of a glorious chorus, you know. But yeah, it's a fun joint for sure.
Okay, all right then. So I've seen it. Yeah, like you said, it's basically around the corner from the station.
Yeah.
Never been in, but especially if they're high on 92 KQ, then I got to stop in.
Yeah, we do all right there, I think, for sure.
I go there a lot. And I went
did
on
hear
my
you reference
birthday, not a couple weeks ago. I went on my birthday, and I was rough the next morning because they had these things called mystery shots.
Oh,
And, I got a bunch of free ones.
No.
I can't say no when it's my birthday. You know, that's rude. Someone gives you a mystery shot, you take it. You don't be rude on your birthday.
You can't be rude on your birthday. For crying out loud, you've got to get any idea. Now, you're a skilled veteran of the shots.
It was a fun time. I mean, my friend Julie and I sang Nickelback on karaoke, sang some of the dumbest songs ever created in the world, and everyone was loving it.
Karaoke's got to be, they have to be dumb. That's why I was singing Every Rose Has Its Thorn at midnight on a Saturday. But, yeah, no, it's...
I can't even begin to imagine accepting a mystery shot. Not even one. In my life. I really like to know everything that's entering my body.
Come on, live a little.
No, I have. That's the problem. I have. I lived a lot.
At least at a bar, you know, they're serving you something that's, you know, drinkable. You know, I wouldn't do that at a buddy's party. You know, someone's going to, I don't know, God knows what they're going to, some Lysol or something in there. Hey, if we're talking about tomorrow, a lot of things going on. If you don't mind, I'd like to mention the 59th annual Flood Run. It has been for many years the largest single-day motorcycle run in the nation, raising money, all of the funds, of course, for the Gillette Children's Hospital. The official kickoff at the beach bar, of course, over in Lake St. Croix Beach, registration from 8 to 11 a.m., and then the bikes will roll. And if you don't have your official Flood Run wristband that you purchased for your donation to the Gillette Children's Hospital, then you're not on the Flood Run. You're just sharing the road. So make that donation, please. Everybody, safe, fun run tomorrow out for the 59th annual Flood Run. Jim, thanks for texting me in and reminding me that this morning.
That's great.
Yeah, good stuff.
It's very good stuff. Back to the Minnesota's bestest really quickly. Another category, neck and neck right now. Best current athlete from Minnesota. There are 6 options.
Oh, yeah.
You've got Frank Ragnow, who plays for the Detroit Lions. He's from Chanhassen. Paige Beckers of the Yukon Huskies, women's college basketball, from Hopkins High School. Before Caitlin Clark, it was all about Paige Beckers. She got injured, missed over a season, and then Caitlin Clark got all the attention. But Paige will be back next year for her senior year. She is an absolute elite baller.
I love to have seen her had that last shot at the game, but water under the bridge. We're moving along.
Brock Faber from Maple Grove, now a member of your Minnesota Wild.
Hell yeah, great season.
Tough, man.
Not necessarily for the Wild. They just wrapped it up with a big loss. But, Brock Faber, excited to have him on the team.
What about Chet Holmgren from Minnehaha Academy, Oklahoma City Thunder? I knew he was from the area, forgot he was from the area, and now I'm pleasantly reminded he's from here. He is that Oklahoma City Thunder team is a very, very scary proposition for the future. Suni Lee from St. Paul is a member of the U.S. Olympic gymnastics team.
A gold medal winner.
What in the what is gymnasts, man? The things they go through, their life. That is militaristic. It's agrarian work ethic. Whatever the hardest working thing in the world is, that's what every gymnast I've ever met is.
I know your daughter was into it. My daughter was into it until she broke her back doing the Yurchenko, getting ready for nationals. But was so into it that, it was gymnastics before school, then after school. And then she'd come home with these chalky hands at like 9 o'clock at night, cram in a little homework and go to bed, and then repeat. They did have 1 week a year off. It was only a 51-week season. Actually, that wasn't the season. That was the training. And I would go and watch that as an ex-football player, a baseball player. Track doesn't really count, although the way I did it. I thought I was a tough guy. And then I would just go and watch these gymnasts practice and thought, no, I've got nothing. I couldn't do half. Ouch. That's a brutal sport.
It's completely impossible.
And discipline is all the respect.
Marley started gymnastics at 10. And it was so funny to see a 10-year-old child be told, no, you've got a knack for this, but you're about 6 years too late. Like,
right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Finally, the last member of the current athlete from Minnesota, Jesse Diggins. Look out. That's a tough one to overlook. This is any one of these six athletes I can see you making a strong case for.
I went back and forth between SUNY and Jesse because of the championships, right?
Yeah.
We've got a gold medal. We've got a world champion and gold medals. Jesse had a few more. I'll just say it right now. Jesse Diggins got my vote. But you can vote more than once because I had to go back and then give Brock a vote, and SUNY wins a gold medal. That's a tough pick. A lot of these are tough picks. You talk about the Juicy Lucy or your favorite record store is one of the things you're voting on. Record store day tomorrow. I look at all of those record stores. I'm like, I love every one of them equally. They all have amazing records, and they're thriving right here in the Twin Cities. I don't want to have to make a decision, but maybe vote for everyone every time. I mean, each time that you vote, just do it like 5 times or something like that. But it's a lot of fun to go through it. And then, of course, I'm turned on to some new places. I'm looking at pancake places and going, there's 3 I haven't been to yet. It's going to happen.
Very nice. Very nice. Hey, this weekend, or actually started on the 11th, and it goes to the 25th, so it's a couple weeks, the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Film Festival, also known as MSPIF. MSPIF. That's what they call it, MSPIF. 43rd annual. It's going on mostly over at the cinema, the main cinema in Minneapolis on Main Street, also right around the corner from the station here. Also the Capri in North Minneapolis and the Landmark in St. Paul, but a lot of it is mostly at the main cinema. One of the films showing, there's a screening tomorrow that is already sold out. There's a screening Sunday that's got a few tickets still remaining. It's called No One Asked You. And it's okay, do you remember, local comedian, a TV legend, Liz Winstead, a Minnesota gal who she created The Daily Show. Yeah. I mean, going back to the Craig Kilborn era, pre-Jon Stewart, this was one of the things she created. This is a film that follows her and other comedians. They're traveling the country, and they're fighting essentially for women's rights and trying to have a laugh while doing so. And they find themselves in a lot of very creative, a lot of very hilarious situations. And this movie was directed by a woman I've known for 35 years named Ruth Lightman, who I met as a rock photographer. And then along the way, I guess now she's directing films that are winning awards. And it's a pretty exciting thing. But this movie's gotten a huge buzz. And like I said, there's a showing Sunday. We still have some tickets available if you want to see them. All this to say, Ruth Lightman, who directed and produced this film, my old friend, will be joining us on the KQ Morning Show in a few minutes to discuss this film. I look forward to having that chat, and I think you'll dig it too, so hang tight.
It's the KQ Morning Show, 92 KQRS. Zep, Tony, Candace, and Steve Gorman are the KQ Morning Show, 92 KQRS.
I'm Steve Gorman. This is the KQ Morning Show. It's Friday, April the 19th. Happy Friday. Happy 420 weekend. Happy Record Store Day weekend. A lot of things going on.
Husband Appreciation.
Oh, I forgot. Sorry. Husband Appreciation Day tomorrow.
How could you forget?
It's
everyone else will.
Just goes to show how unappreciated I am on a daily basis. What else is happening? Kicked off last Thursday, April 11th, and until next Thursday, April 25th, is the 43rd annual Minneapolis-St. Paul International Film Festival. There are films showing at the Landmark Center in St. Paul, the Capri in North Minneapolis. Primarily, though, the films they show over at the main cinema in Minneapolis. And one of those films is called No One Asked You. It is a documentary following local legendary comedian Liz Winstead, who co-created The Daily Show. She and fellow comedians with musicians, they're traveling the country year in and year out, fighting for women's rights, for body autonomy, and they're doing so in a very funny way in a lot of hilarious situations. I would imagine some very bizarre situations as they encounter. But this documentary was directed by an old friend of mine, Ruth Lightman, and Ruth joins us on the morning show. Ruth, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me in KQ.
I'm so happy to chat with you. I mentioned earlier in the show that among the many things you've done in your life, you and I go back 35 5 years to a photo shoot in Atlanta, Georgia, where you shot what turned out to be the cover photographs for my band's first album, Shake Your Moneymaker.
You know what? You were a baby drummer, and I was a baby photographer at the time. It was awesome. And
Well,
your band had another name then, Mr. Crow's Garden. And I think that day there was like a discussion about what your new name should be.
That was a heady discussion that was going on for a few weeks. We were like, by the time you come around to recognizing, anytime you tell someone your band name and they say, what? That's not a good thing. And, Mr. Coast Guard is what usually people thought I was saying. So, we were, those were fraught discussions. I didn't remember having that at your studio that day, but that does check out. I also mentioned along the way, everybody has a welcome to the music industry, welcome to the machine moment. And mine was actually, I bumped into you a few months later and I said, hey, Ruth, what's up? And you said, you guys stiffed me. And I said, what? And you go, I haven't been paid yet. And I was like, that's the record company. I don't know how this works. And I felt terrible. I was embarrassed. And I wanted to, of course, I'm sitting there with 9 cents in my pocket going, well, I can buy you, a pack of gum. I don't know what to do here. But I guess it all worked out in the end. We're still friends.
We are. And I'm sorry that I did that. But I'm also looking back, I'm glad that whatever 20-year-old me was like a badass. I don't know.
Well, it's funny. You said you were a baby photographer and we were all young. You struck us as very much an adult. Like, I remember we all thought man, she's really got it together. She probably has an alarm clock and everything.
Yeah, a little. No, I think we were all babies. I'm a little bit older than you, but that was a crazy time and a cool music scene in Atlanta for sure. Got to shoot you and Outkast, the Ramones. It was just good being there at the time. It was a scene. It was a great music scene.
It certainly was. And it is to this day, in fact. Minneapolis, another one of those towns. When I grew up, I was thinking Athens, Atlanta, or Minneapolis. Those were the two worlds I was drawn to the whole time. And so let's get back to Minneapolis, the 43rd annual Minneapolis-St. Paul International Film Festival. Your film, congratulations, is showing tomorrow. That screening, I should say, is sold out. Sunday, there are a few tickets left for a 2 p.m. showing. Quickly, okay, Liz Winstead, I think a lot of people know who Liz is. She's a local, she's a Minnesota comedian. And of course, The Daily Show is something that, that's a pretty big deal to have been a part of the creation of. But this film, like most films, probably you had no idea what you were getting into, I'm going to assume, and it took way longer than you thought it would. And you probably don't even remember what you were thinking. But how did this start? What was the genesis of this project?
It did. I had always admired Liz's work, and we filmed for 7 years. But, Liz is a disruptor. She calls it out, and we love and admire that about her. Mm-hmm. She was sounding the alarm, bringing laughter and facts, of course, to this very politicized issue, which is also known as health care.
Right, sure.
For women. So I wanted to follow their work because they brought joy and laughter and so much heart to activism around bodily autonomy. And that was long overdue in this country. So in 2017, we headed out on the Vagical Mystery Tour, which was a 16-city sort of USO meets Habitat for Humanity kind of tour. And, Liz definitely cut her teeth as a comic on the stage at First Avenue. So, but she was also really a critic of the media too, and felt that this wasn't being reported on. And so that's a through line. So, she's also started the careers of lots of people from Rachel Maddow to Steve Carell. And on this tour, we meet a bunch of up-and-coming comics. We shot for so long that, their stars have risen. So Alex English is a writer for Saturday Night Live. Jay McBride is touring and writing with Amy Schumer. Joy L. Johnson just had her own comedy special on Peacock. So you follow something long enough, people become famous, like you.
Yeah, right. I would imagine over those 7 years, you probably had a whole lot of moments where as it's happening, you're thinking, oh, this is absolutely going to make the final cut. And then 7 years later, you realize you have way too many of those moments.
We did. This was hard. I like to call it, it was a lovely beast. This is a
right.
film that I feel like I never should have had to make, but I did, because I felt like the comedy and outrage around social justice issues really kind of helps us. It's cathartic. And so the crazier things got in this country over the last many years, the more we were like, okay, insert comedy here, bring more of their content in here that, because they are media makers too.
Right.
Liz and her team. So, that was something. There were many things that we had to leave behind. And in fact, at one point we had wanted to make this as a series. Try to pitch that to broadcasters right now.
Yeah, right.
So, but we're thrilled with what we have, and audiences have really responded to it, because it turns out people want to have control over their own lives.
Sure,
I wouldn't know you, Steve. I wouldn't even know you if I hadn't been. And thank you for playing Jack and Diane. That was lovely. I almost started crying before I got on the call with you, because I was that 17-year-old. She's 16, but I was that 17-year-old, and I wouldn't have had a life as a photographer and then filmmaker if I hadn't been able to make my own choices back then.
Ruth Lightman's with us on the KQ Morning Show. I think one of the great things about this film, and obviously the work Liz has been doing, going out and having conversations face-to-face with real people, not via social media, not through the mainstream media, not through even a show like this. There's a little bit of a separation, but talking to people in the street, as if you will, it's such an important thing, and especially if you're bringing comedy in hand, because at the end of the day, regardless of how, like you said, this crazy environment we've all spent the last 20 years watching everything seemingly get politicized, we still have way more in common than what separates us. But the problem is there's a lot of people that know how to keep us separated. And this is a case, if anybody can communicate a point of view in a less threatening manner and with a funnier manner than Liz Winstead, I can't imagine who that would be.
She has really pioneered comedy news and bringing political satire to the facts.
Yep. It's a really great thing when you see somebody whose satire goes in a 360-degree direction too, where politics are concerned. The film is called No One Asked You. It's great.
I love that.
The title alone, it's just like, okay, winner. I dig it. It's playing Saturday's show at the main cinema is sold out. Sunday, April 21st, there's a screening at 2. There are a few tickets still available. Ruth Lightman, director of this film. Do you have the next project lined up, or is it all just promoting this and seeing where you go?
Well, we're spending a lot of time promoting this into the end of 2024, and a couple things in the works. Hoping to finally bring out my fiction ladies wrestling film, because I made a documentary many years ago and wrote a script. So still hoping to do that, but really focused. Yeah. I was, the brain trust of these original women of wrestling, some of whom wrestled here in Minnesota. This was a big wrestling town. So, working on that, and then also working on the impact and engagement. We want to be on every college campus and in every senior home. Because people, who are of multi-generations, this is something that really brings people together. And we really need to bring people together around making choices for their own lives.
Perfectly stated. Ruth, thanks. It's a pleasure to chat with you. Thanks for taking the time, and best of luck this weekend.
Thank you, Steve. It's great to talk to you.
See ya.
Cool. I mean... Yeah, I was just going to say, I like so many things about this. I didn't want to jump in there. You guys had such a friendly conversation. It was kind of like when you were talking with Jason Bonham, but so I'm sitting back and listening. But, this one of the things that attracted me to Minnesota, having grown up in the redneck area of South Dakota, when I came to Minnesota I was like, look at all these different points of view. Look at everyone. We could all talk about the same things, and we're not arguing and hurling insults at each other. No one's storming out of the room. I disagree with you vehemently. But what an interesting point of view you have, and it really makes me either solidify my point of view or make me question my point of view whenever I find myself, I think it was Samuel Clemens that wrote, whenever I find myself agreeing with the majority, that's when I stop and take a pause.
Yeah.
And autonomy. I'm all about autonomy. I'll guarantee you Liz Winstead's election ballot completed looks very different than mine. Not maybe as different as some people might think, but I guarantee it looks very different. But the respect and the topics she takes on and body autonomy, some people might roll their eyes at that, but autonomy is the right or the condition of self-government. And I'd love to see more of that in this country. And I'd like to get back to a day when we can make fun of people in our own party, people in the other party. I don't think we're anywhere close to getting to that. I think the internet made us all far too courageous at the keyboard. And when I say that, I mean cowards at the keyboard, because we don't type the things that we say to people, or when we say it, we're too angry about it. But this is definitely a film that I'm going to watch, and I have an utmost respect for Liz Winstead and her body of work completely and fully. I think it's fantastic.
There's two things I've said a million times in my life, and I mean them both very seriously. The first is, if I think I'm the smartest guy in the room, I change rooms.
Yeah.
Quick, for two reasons. One, I'm not going to learn anything, and two, we're in trouble. Oh no!
Right.
I used to say in my band, "Wait, if I'm the level-headed one, guys, we have a problem." Believe me when I say that. And then the other thing I say, there's nothing more boring than being agreed with. I know how I think, and I know what I feel, and I love somebody giving me a point of view or some information that I had already rejected or had never thought of in the first place, but that makes me go, wait, hold on, stop. I truly mean that I love finding out I'm wrong, because it means I just learned something. I have never had a problem with being wrong. Being wrong is the only way I ever figured anything out in the first place. And so, to your point, Zepp, there's a lot of I'm with you with Liz Winstead. I've seen her before. I've seen her live. I've seen her on a million shows. And there are things that she says that I disagree with entirely, and I will still tune in, and I respect her, and I think she's great. I do agree with a lot of what she says, but I'm saying the point is, there's no just duality. It's not one or the other. And I want to circle back to the most important thing you said, because I firmly have the same view, which is that's what Minnesota has over. I just came from Tennessee, and man, let me tell you something. It's just like there's not a lot of in the middle. It's very one or the other. And I've had more conversations in the last 15 months with people that are just honest to God. You're talking, you're presenting your thoughts, interesting, respect given, respect taken, move on. Nobody loses sleep over it. It's all okay.
Right.
And
laugh at ourselves, laugh at the other side. And conversely, when you talk to somebody about, how you feel about something, isn't it nice when they take the time to listen, even though they don't feel the same way? And then at the end of it, if we can give each other a little bit of grief, that's fun too. Because I'll tell you what, if you can't take grief over your beliefs and what you feel, either politically or socially, then maybe you don't, maybe you need to start questioning exactly how you feel or why you feel that way. But outstanding. I just know I got a text from a buddy who's like, dude, what are you doing? And I'm like, dude, you know what we're doing? We're putting stuff out on the air that everyone can listen to. Everyone is involved. And guess what? Check out, dude. I mean, go, fire up your song facts if you want to, or something like that. Or I don't even know, Spotify. What the hell are the name of these streaming services? I listen to 92.5. Yeah. And anyway, that was fun. That was cool. I'm going to check out the film. I don't know if I'm going to like it, but I guarantee you I'll laugh at it and appreciate it.
Yep, that's the plan. That's always a good thing. Speaking of laughing and appreciating, Liz Mealy is an Acme comedy. Liz was with us last year. She was in the studio, and she's going to be back again. She's at Acme all weekend. A very funny woman from New Jersey. It's going to be a pleasure to talk to her in just a few minutes. Hang tight.
Connect with us on the KQ Talk and Text line, 651-989-ROCK. That's 651-989-ROCK. 92 KQRS.
I'm Steve Gorman. This is the KQ Morning Show. It's Friday, April 19th. In addition to the fact that tomorrow's 420 and Record Store Day, tonight and tomorrow are two wonderful opportunities for you to go to the Acme Comedy Company to see Liz Mealy, who is a fantastic stand-up, and she's with us now. Good morning, Liz.
It almost sounded like Candace exasperated.
Wow. We got some technical difficulties.
That'll happen, not just on a Monday, but on a Friday. Sometimes maybe it's 420 for the equipment, too.
You know what they call them? Gremlins. They call them gremlins.
Oh, we got them all over the place.
I always think about
Southeast Elm.
I always think about one of the 2 trials that I was in, like actual jury courtroom trials I've been a part of. Yeah. And one of the attorneys was talking about, like the guy that was suing us was just throwing out all these stories one after the other, and he was explaining to the jury. He goes, "You know what he's doing? You know what he's doing? He's setting rabbits loose in the courtroom." Hello, are we all here?
We're ready.
All right,
Liz. I was like, oh no, what'd I do wrong?
Liz Mealy breaking things.
I didn't do it.
You're gonna get charged for you break it. You bought it.
I didn't do it.
That's you got to get a little more passion behind the "I didn't do it," Liz. No one's gonna buy that.
It's too early for any kind of exuberance whatsoever for me.
It's even too early for denial. I never knew there was such a thing as too early for denial. Being the Irish Catholic that I am. Liz, we met last year. One time you came in already, and I'm fascinated by. Okay, I was the typical kid who was obsessed with music and records and bands, and I would go to the basement and listen to records and air drum and air guitar, and that's all I wanted to do. And you were that same kid, except it was comedy.
Yeah, so I mean, it's kind of the same thing. And I was just with a couple of my siblings when I was in LA, and like, you're just quoting stand-up. Like, my sister quotes all the time. She goes, "Did you touch it? Did you touch it?" And we're like, what is that from? And we couldn't figure it out because we've been saying it for years. And then we were in the car going to the beach, and she was like, "Oh, you do want to listen to Nick Swartzen?" And in the middle of it, he says it. He's like talking to he has some like Vanna White joke. And he's like, "Did you touch it, Vanna? Did you touch it?" And we're like, "Oh, that's what it's from." So like, to me, comedy is like, it becomes its own language in a way that like, I can now use this little phrase and you know what I'm saying. So like, even my mom will quote like Mitch Hedberg, where like they'll be like, "Oh, do you want a receipt?" And she's like, when would I need a receipt for a donut?" Like, right. So it's like, there's these like little moments that like, I don't know, you're on the same page as somebody because you both relate to this joke.
Yeah, no, I get that. I mean, like lines from movies are the same way. Like my brothers and I we talk to each other in In-Laws Speak, the Alan Arkin, Peter Falk movie. Every line is available at any time in any context. So I totally get that.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's always just made me happy. And like, even today, like watching my friends and even like, discovering new comics because they open for me and stuff. I just love the language of it. I love how people's brains work. It's my favorite thing.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. Younger comics coming up, when you see that kid that you were once upon a time, I'm sure it's got to be fascinating to see, every generation has everything before them to pull from. But now you're seeing people who have an even bigger vocabulary as they're starting out. And that's got to be, in a weird way, gratifying. And I doubt it's threatening at all. It's probably really exhilarating to recognize how younger minds are taking stuff that you've heard and maybe kind of moved on from, but they're still tweaking it and getting new directions to go in.
For sure. And it's even fascinating. Like, I'm 38, so I had a little bit of internet when I was younger, but like, most of it has been absorbed through adulthood. So I truly can't imagine what it would be like that there's this whole second world that you have to get to know on top of like school and your parents and your family and stuff. So it's like, I think we're actually going to see a generation with more and more unique perspectives. Like, I think there's something fascinating about that.
Liz Mealy's with us on the KQ Morning Show. Acme tonight, 7 and 9:30, and tomorrow night, 7 and 9:30. I mentioned, the kid obsessive, listening to records over and over, and for you, listening to comedy over and over. But unlike me, you as a teenager and still living at home started actually doing it. You lived in New Jersey. You would travel into the city to do comedy when you were still a high school student. Was there a voice in your head that said, "This is nuts," or was it just fearless, "Screw it, I'm doing this"?
I don't know, because I'm a pretty scared person. Like, as I've really gotten older, I'm like, oh, I have too much anxiety and I don't want to do anything. I didn't want to wake up this morning. Like, and most things I'm like, I don't want to do it.
Right.
So I don't exactly know what that is, but I do think most levels, most things that move the needle is that your passion for it outweighs your fear. And I just loved comedy so much. So even though there were so many different things I had to, like so many different hurdles I had to get over, you know, public speaking and showing people my writing, traveling by myself, going to a different place, like all this stuff that I had to kind of get over and is consistently what my life is about. It seemed worth it, but I don't remember what that voice was other than like, I do remember believing like, if it didn't work out, I was young enough that I could do something else. Like, why not try now?
Right.
Because I have time. And I don't have that time anymore. I've just come to the realization.
Just ancient, yeah.
Yeah, but it's a real hard curve to have no life skills and start over. So I guess this is my life now.
A little thing of confetti just went.
Yeah.
Like, oh no.
All that to say, I'm on this track. I'm not changing tracks. Okay, I get it.
I mean, you're way down this track. I can dig it. I'm just looking at your bio, Liz Mealy at Acme Comedy Club this weekend. Here we got you're featured in New Yorker, Wow, New York Times, Big Time, Runner's World, and Psychology Today. What are you doing in Runner's World and Psychology Today as a comedian? I love it. I used to run marathons. I was kidding.
Yeah, I still run a little bit, but not as much as I used to. But I used to constantly run, and I had a joke about running marathons but hating them because those are also up early, and and somebody at Runner's World saw it, so I ended up doing like an event for them and getting profiled in their magazine, and I just thought it was probably one of the first times that my dad was like very proud of me.
That's great. Yeah, you know those editors at Runner's World, they're just combing the landscape. Can someone interesting please mention running?
Yeah, for sure.
Please.
I really think so.
Yeah.
Psychology Today. That sounds heavy.
Not really. I've always I've been in therapy for 10 years. I've always been kind of have maybe not always had some self-awareness, but I've always been there's a lot of mental illness in my family, so I've always been aware that something ain't right.
Yeah.
And so I think with Psychology Today, I think that article specifically was just about the self-awareness that's involved with writing jokes about yourself, and what that takes. But I don't know. I think some of the best comics out there, even if they're not talking about personal stuff like I do, have some awareness of who they are in the world. And I actually really appreciate that Psychology Today took something silly like what I do and gave some thoughtfulness to it.
Nice. I think someone with a level of self-awareness who's talking about themselves as you do, to get up there and comedy is a lot of things. Funny is just one of those things. A great comedy anyway, in my opinion. And you, there's a how do I say this? That self-awareness and the ability and the willingness to say some really scary and vulnerable things. There's also, to the other side of that, is I do think you have a keen sense of empathy. I think you have I think you relate to what anybody else might be going through. You're willing to share your crazy. So it's like, hey, bring your crazy here. We're all good. I mean, does that kind of check out to you? Because that's what I feel like when I watch your act.
For sure. I mean, I think in the beginning you don't realize that's what you're doing. I think I felt like really scared and alone most of my life, and comedy always made me feel that way. It always made me feel less alone and made me feel safe, and it made me feel comfortable laughing at my faults, and I think I followed in those footsteps. And I mean, I think as talking about mental health and mental illness became somewhat more socially acceptable, I find nothing but connection with the people that I perform for. And my brother, who I'm very close with, he has bipolar 1. He was in and out of mental hospitals. And for a long time, when he was sick and I was visiting him, I didn't know how to process it. And when he got better and he's doing amazing, I asked him, I was like, can I talk about this from my perspective? And his thing was like, as long as it's funny, you can say whatever you want. So I would always check with him because it's his story.
Right.
But when I started telling his story, it's probably like, a couple of years ago, I mean, I had so many people that are like, oh, my mother was in and out of mental hospitals. My brother had the same experience. You know, I was in and out of, and it was just something that kind of took this stigmatism away from it, as well as being able to laugh at it. Because I have anxiety. I suffered from depression. I have my own, issues that aren't as extreme as my brother's. But I think there's been a lot of serious things I've been through that I've been able to talk about that, I don't know, I feel like building a fan base is building a group of people that you would be able to hang out with and connect with.
Oh, that's a great way to put it. I think it's as we get older, and I will kind of further what Zep said. 38 ain't old, trust me. As you get older, you do start to realize whether you're processing and talking about your life in public or not. Everybody's been through their own ringer, and the weirdest, craziest things that happen to us are far more relatable than you might ever imagine possible.
For sure. And like I just came out with a special like 2 weeks ago, and I end on an 11-minute bit about pretty much my cat dying and that connection to my best friend, like this guy that I've known for like 20 years. And I have a line in it where like, I'm like, I have to put my cat down. Like, she's dying. It's not fair to her anymore. And it's just like, I say, like, there's so many people I'd rather kill than my cat right now. Like, I can name 50 people.
Sure.
And it's such a relatable, like, it was such a fun bit to work through, even though I'm literally talking about putting my cat down. And it's such a sad topic, but everybody relates to that. Like, yo, this little dude's my best friend. And I have to end it. Like, even Mark Maron, like, he had a special come out recently, and it made me laugh so hard because it was the same perspective where somebody was making him feel bad because he's never had kids, and he's like, I have cats. He's like, on the best day, I have to kill my best friend. And I was like, oh my God, this is so relatable. Mm-hmm. And it's so nice to like be, around a community where like I can be brutally honest and people are like, oh yeah, that is the worst day.
Well, brutally honest, we are talking to the woman who wrote a book called Why Cats Are Assholes.
All right, Liz, now do me a favor, if you would indulge me. I, in a relationship, and inherited 2 cats, a dog guy because I'm cool, and I won't admit how much I love cats. But give me just one reason cats are assholes.
Man, I have 2 kittens right now, Lunchbox and Ghost. They're good. They're good guy. I mean, they're so cuddly and sweet. But I have maybe 4 glasses that aren't broken. I started with 12. I call what Lunchbox is. I call him a scientist because he's not doing it maliciously. Like, he basically just is like, I wonder what happens when this goes off the edge. And then every time it crashes, he's like, that's crazy. Let's do it again. I'm like, Lunchbox. Like, so it's so awful that like people come over and I'll be like, oh, do you want water? And I'm like, you either have to hold it or bring it from room to room with you. Because I'm down to like 3 glasses.
All right. That's great. Fantastic.
Liz Mealy is at Acme tonight and tomorrow night. There's 2 shows each night, 7 and 9:30. Acme's a pretty great spot. You mentioned it's so great to be a part of a community. And this is one of the key clubs in the country. How many times have you were there last year? I know when you came in the studio with a different project you guys were working on, it was a group effort. How many times have you been to Acme?
I think this is my 3rd time. It's it's legendary. I think there's about, honestly, like a half a dozen clubs in the country that it's just kind of an honor to work there, and Acme is one of them. It's nice. I think the club itself has spawned an environment in Minneapolis of comedy forward and comedy openness, right? So there, you just know if somebody's working that club that's somebody that you should at least check out, even if they're not your type of comedy. But there's just very few clubs that I think treat the comics well. I think expand the community's understanding of comedy and make it conducive for everybody. And I think there's places that do that with bands. I think there's places that do that with art or like street art and stuff. But sure. I feel very fortunate that I've worked some really incredible clubs in this country and other countries.
Yeah, it is that for sure. I mean, that's what long before I moved to Minneapolis, I knew all about Acme. Are you on the West Coast now? Is that where you live?
No, I'm on the East Coast.
Oh, still on the East Coast.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that? Are you just a New Jersey lifer? Are you in the city? What's? I mean, I'm just with everything you've talked about. I'm just curious where you now call home.
I live in Brooklyn. I've lived in New York for 20 years. My family up until recently was in Jersey, so I definitely went back and forth to visit them. But now we're everywhere. I'm one of 5 kids, so everybody's. I feel like we're in like every state, and every month there's a birthday.
Sure. Yeah. Right.
But I love the East Coast. I mean, even like I was in LA for 2 weeks with my family, and I was working in between. And I mean, they have weather now, so I don't even think LA is better than anybody anymore. Like it rained half the time, and I was like, how does it feel to have bad days, guys? But I travel so much that I think in general I now know very much that I'm a city person. Mm-hmm. But I also every week get to have like taste test another city, and I just don't know many people that get to do that.
It is a pretty great way to go about things. Where are you in the order of these 5 kids?
I'm number 2. I'm an older sibling. I have very older sibling vibes. I am aggressive. I will tell you what you're doing wrong. I will make you do stuff for me. I can't tell you how many, my poor boyfriend's starting to get it where like, if anything's like too far, I'm like, can you get that? And he's like, you could get it. And I was like, yeah, but you could also get it.
Right.
So, I'm pretty bossy.
Second kid in the line is a pretty special role. You know, your parents, they overserved that first kid. They made them too soft. You know, they spoil them to death. Second kid, they miss a few things along the way, and then you're picking up on. You know, you're by the time a second kid's 2, you're already acting just like the older kid. You're the same age earlier than that first kid got to. Is what I seem to. What I'm saying is, it's a good spot to be.
For sure. I mean, if it ended there, for sure. And if I was maybe a middle kid, maybe. But second of 5, I mean, I help raise my little brothers, and me and the middle kids are really close. So I have an older sister that's 2.5 years younger, and then I have a baby brother that's 11 years younger than me.
Oh, boy. Okay.
So, you know, the outskirts, they both have the real jobs. We're all artists in the middle, and they're definitely, you know, the youngest is the favorite. That's just how it works.
That's how that works.
He's also a lawyer, so he kind of really was like, I'm going to get a real job. And we're like, suck up.
Of course.
But I don't know. I definitely feel fortunate, especially like my brother, like I said, that was like in and out of mental hospitals. Like we now live close to each other, and I just feel grateful that like I helped raise him when he was younger. I get to take care of him as I'm older. He's doing incredible. Like I feel my dad very much, because my dad's one of 5, my grandfather's one of 5. It's just a lot of people having too much sex. But
yeah,
I feel like I feel honored to be part of a larger family that it was instilled to take care of each other. Like we're all really close.
That's really nice. That's because it's real, as opposed to a lot of families where a lot of lip service, and then it doesn't always turn out that way. Liz Mealy is at Acme tonight and tomorrow night, 7 and 9:30. It is, again, a absolute pleasure to have you in, and have a great weekend, and I look forward to seeing you the next time.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Hooray, Liz Mealy. All right, we have just enough time to look back. On this day in 1981, the worst possible result for a baseball game in history, a game lasted for 33 innings. A Triple-A International League game. The Pawtucket Red Sox and then the Rochester Red Wings, which was an Orioles Triple-A affiliate, played 33 innings, 8 hours and 25 minutes of a single game. Cal Ripken Jr. was playing for Rochester. He had 15 plate appearances in one game.
I mean, I always like, the thing I liked about baseball over football was you just got those nice breaks in the dugout, or you stowed around on the field and played catch a little bit, warming up during those inning changes. That sounds exhausting. 33 frickin' innings.
Awful. 8 hours, 25 minutes. Final score, 3-2. I mean, come on, you couldn't even put a couple dozen runs across? Come on, guys.
I'm letting one go by me. I'm going to commit an error just to get the hell out of there.
Get the KQ Morning Show podcast wherever you listen. 92 KQRS.